What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Goal Line Dynasty. Today, Tyler and I are taking a look at a handful of trades for second-year players, and we're seeing whether or not we're going to buy or sell these guys with their current trade markets. But before we get into the video, Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I love the rookie class last year. Not many bad things to talk about. We got, I think, blessed last year in terms of the receiver class and even the running backs with, Breece Hall and then what you got out of Kenneth Walker last year and you hope to get out of him this year. I think it was a great class last year outside of quarterbacks. So, I think it's a good topic to touch on before we head in, because this is when these guys are really going to start to break out. So.
Yeah, the class last year was pretty awesome. And, let us know in the comments, guys that you're currently buying that are, that were a part of that 2022 class. Who are you buying? Who are you selling? Why are you buying and why are you selling them? We love hearing from you guys. So definitely let us know in those comments below. But we're going to jump into the video here. Tyler, I'm going to highlight our first second-year player, and I'm gonna give you a couple scenarios with Drake London. And I know you're a big Drake London fan. So in this scenario, would you take Drake London or CJ Stroud straight up? And this is super flex format, obviously.
I would have to take Stroud. As much as I love Drake London, in terms of dynasty value, like CJ Stroud's going in the mid to early second round most times. Drake London's going like the late third, early fourth, mid fourth maybe. So in terms of those values, I think you kind of have to go Stroud and then maybe take the trade back. And in a 1-for-1, I wouldn't be able to do that. But I do love Drake London. So like if CJ Stroud is like my fourth quarterback, and if I'm on the clock at like the 105, and that's the best I can do, and I like Drake London, I'd probably take Drake London over JSN. So if I'm looking at JSN over or like Gibbs, then I could probably convince myself Drake London that's the best deal I could get. But straight up for CJ Stroud, no.
Well, that's why I brought in CJ Stroud instead of these rookie picks, right? Because CJ Stroud is pretty much in every league going around the 104 rookie pick, maybe 105. Sometimes Gibbs sneaks up into the top 4 there. But yeah, in my opinion, I think I would take Drake London over JSN as well. So if I can get, 105 or better for Drake London, I would take that. And CJ Stroud is firmly in that top 5. So I do agree with you. I will take CJ Stroud. I love the upside of Drake London, but I love the upside of having a solid quarterback on my team just a little bit more. But one more trade involving Drake London. This one might not pull on your heartstrings as much. So would you rather have Drake London and Isaiah Likely or Marquise Brown and Christian Kirk?
Drake London all day. I hope that this dialogue that I'm about to have is more clear than the last one, because that was a little bit of a crazy train on the last trade. But yeah, as much as I like Marquise Brown as a buy low, and as much as Isaiah Likely doesn't matter, and who is the other one? Christian Kirk. And as much as I like Christian Kirk too, those two do not equal what Drake London can be. Like if Drake London has any sort of a quarterback upgrade or situation change, like he could be a top 5 dynasty receiver in the blink of an eye before you even know it. Like the guy had a top 5 target share in the league last year. There's no shot I'm giving that up for Marquise Brown and Christian Kirk, who's got Calvin Ridley coming in. Both those guys have question marks. Kyler Murray's hurt, and Calvin Ridley just came into Christian Kirk's receiving room. So easily give me Drake London over that package, unless it's like a start 12, start 13, then I have to start considering it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm taking Drake London on this side. Isaiah Likely, in my opinion, is kind of just a throw in there, right? But Drake London has the same floor that Christian Kirk and Marquise Brown has shown, which is concerning, right? When you can get 2 of those guys for one of them, it's something that like you're you should consider. But Drake London, I mean, he can be a top 10 dynasty wide receiver this time next year with a solid showing in 2023. Marquise Brown and Christian Kirk will not even sniff that conversation, right? Marquise Brown might not have a quarterback throwing to him for the entirety of 2023. And then Christian Kirk, I mean, Calvin Ridley's there now. Evan Ingram broke out again last year. And as much as that Jacksonville offense is going to be throwing, Christian Kirk's going to be a very volatile option in 2023. So give me Drake London. I'm gonna take that. Even on a contending roster, I'm still sticking with Drake London. But Tyler, I know you got a couple trades for me. So who are we looking at here?
All right. So the first one we're looking at here is going to be Chris Olave, my beloved. So here we have Rashad Bateman and a 24 first. Let's say it's a middling 24 first for Chris Olave straight up.
Olave easily. Like, I don't think that's a fair trade. And I think whoever got the Bateman side, if you're watching this, shame on you. I know there are some people that still believe in Rashad Bateman, but I am most definitely not one of them. Bateman has not done anything since he's entered the league. I know you can blame injuries, and that's perfectly fine, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't really seen a ton from him, right? Like, he had a solid enough rookie year to where people were still buzzing about him, but he can't stay on the field, and Baltimore knows this. Like, they brought in Odell Beckham. They just drafted Zay Flowers in the first round. They made sure to extend Mark Andrews as long as they possibly can. Like, Rashad Bateman, at best, is the wide receiver 3 on this Baltimore team in 2023. Like, he doesn't have the same upside that Zay Flowers does. He's not going to be the big play guy like OBJ is. Obviously, I would rather have Bateman than OBJ in Dynasty, but the fact of the matter is I don't think Bateman's going to do enough in 2023 to help his value to the point where I think this trade becomes fair. So I will take Olave over Bateman in a first any day of the week.
Yeah, I'm with you. It'd have to be like a top 3 guaranteed locked first round pick for me to give up Chris Olave in that instance. The next one here, I think, is pretty even. Devonta Smith and the 203 or Chris Olave and Samaje Perine.
Ooh. See, that one's interesting because I feel like
it's a wash. I feel like it's a wash and a wash. Like, there are 2 guys in the same tier and 2 things that are in the same tier.
My thing is I view Chris Olave in a very similar light to how I view Devonta Smith. And I know that's kind of a controversial take because there are some people that have Chris Olave as like their number 7 or number 8 dynasty wide receiver. And I know he looked good last year, but I'm not ready to exalt him that high. People are putting him ahead of Devonta Smith. And we just saw Devonta Smith have, the wide receiver 9 overall year in 2022. I think Olave and Smith have the same ceiling and the same floor in my opinion. And I would take the 203 over Samaje Perine. So for the most part, yeah, it is a wash, but I do lean Devonta Smith even in a 1-for-1 just because we've already seen him have the top 10 wide receiver season where we're still waiting on that from Chris Olave. So give me the Devonta Smith side there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. As much as I love Chris Olave, it's like we know Devonta Smith isn't an elite offense regardless of whether or not he's behind A.J. Brown. And I think the 203 is much more flexible, and I'd much rather have the 203 than Samaje Perine. So with you there. And now it's your turn.
It is my turn, and my next guy is, he's not as exciting as Drake London or Chris Olave, I can tell you that. But I feel like the top wide receivers of the class, they always get talked about when we talk about second-year players from the 2022 class. Or we talk about Breece Hall or Kenny Walker. Nobody's talking about James Cook anymore. So I have a couple of trades for James Cook. I know that it's a mixed bag on how everyone feels about James Cook. To be honest, I'm not even sure how you feel about James Cook. So I'm excited to hear your answers on these. But Tyler, would you take James Cook or the 207 and 311?
James Cook. I know that he's a lead back in Buffalo this year, which is what I want. I know there's a lot of people who are high on James Cook. I can definitely get a better price than the 207, 307, I think. That definitely, yeah, fuck that. Give me the James Cook side. I'm not even a James Cook fan, but give me the Cook side.
Well, I like that you say that because, yeah, I completely agree. James Cook, and we were saying this, not we, I was saying this. I know you and I didn't really have a lot of discussion on James Cook, I don't think, this time last year. But either way, James Cook, to me, I was buying him at cost in 2022 rookie drafts, not for the upside, but because of the floor. James Cook, we knew that Buffalo was likely not re-signing Devin Singletary, and we knew that James Cook would become at least the 1B of this situation for the foreseeable future, and that's exactly what's happening. Hell, he's probably the 1A over Damian Harris this year, right? So he's going to be a yearly, maybe RB 18 at best to RB 25 at worst, as long as he's in this Buffalo offense and it is PPR format. So I'll take my low end RB2. There's nothing sexy about it right now, but he is worth more than a mid-second and a late third. So I agree with you. I am going to take James Cook, but I have one more James Cook trade for you, buddy. And this one, I think this one will actually make you think. So would you rather have James Cook and pick 10 overall or Najee Harris?
Ooh. So pick 10 is right after Zay Flowers, right?
Yeah, usually 10 is going to be like Zay Flowers, Will Levis, your choice of RB3 maybe.
Give me the Najee side with not a lot of action. But I think like we said, like Najee is our Josh Jacobs this year, and I would be really contradictory if I said I would sell him for James Cook and Zach Charbonnet, or James Cook and Kendra Miller. So in terms of that, if that's what I'm looking at, then I don't think Zay Flowers falls to that 110. I think he's getting taken over Will Levis and those running backs. So give me Najee on that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to take Najee Harris. Like you said, he is this year's Josh Jacobs in our mind. I will go back and forth between him and Miles Sanders, but Najee Harris actually is being drafted about the same time Josh Jacobs was last year, right? So kind of more fitting to say Najee Harris. I think he's going to have a pretty big year, and I would be very surprised to see him finish outside of the top 8, maybe top 9 running backs. And that's just a ceiling that James Cook doesn't offer. As much as I wouldn't mind, grabbing Will Levis in my super flex league, or taking a flyer on Zay Flowers, or, Kendra Miller's my RB3 personally, taking him and James Cook over Najee Harris. I mean, there's something kind of intriguing about it, but at the end of the day, I would not be able to pull the trigger on this, and it would be Najee Harris for me all day in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Najee just fits that prototype, like the running back that was like, a perennial top 10 back, and then has like a big workload coming up towards the end of his contract. I'll take Najee, and I think especially last year, knowing he had the Liz Frank injury and still finished as like a serviceable running back, then I'm going to take the Najee side. So my turn now. I'm going to move on to my guy, Mr. Breece Hall. And this one's an absolute blockbuster. And I think I know which side I want. This is Breece Hall and CeeDee Lamb, or Justin Jefferson and the 107. So it's Justin Jefferson and either Quinn Johnson, Jordan Addison.
Jeez, man, that's insane. That is an insane trade.
This just happened on May 12th, so about a month ago. So shout out to Darth Vader and Professor X for pulling this one off.
So Breece Hall and CeeDee Lamb, or Jefferson and we'll call it Jordan Addison. So your tandem Minnesota wide receivers. Damn, dude, we'll
call it Quentin Johnson because we don't want the tandem kind of negatively impacts that side of the deal, I guess.
Oh, I'm fine with the tandem, believe it or not. I would still take Jordan Addison. If I have Justin Jefferson on my roster, I'm still taking Addison over QJ. I'm not going to let that affect think about it. Would you be upset if you had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Probably not, right? So not that
I'd like to move T. Higgins in a couple seconds for like Jalen Waddle, but I probably couldn't do that right now. But go on.
Well, either way, I know you're going to take the Breece CeeDee Lamb side. I'm going to take the Justin Jefferson side because how often do you get a trade in your inbox where you can actually get Justin Jefferson and a first-round pick back? This is really close, and it would be really hard to send away Breece Hall and CeeDee Lamb. But at the end of the day, I'm taking Justin Jefferson in a 1-for-1, obviously, any day over CeeDee. And Breece Hall, I know what his ceiling is And I know that we saw it over a very small sample size in 2022, but he still has a long way back from injury. They've already said he's going to start 2023 slow. No one's going to be surprised by that, right? I think by the end of 2023, he is going to, come back onto the scene and he'll be just as good as we think he is. But man, I can't pass up getting Justin Jefferson. So as much as it pains me to get rid of Breece and CD, I'm taking Jefferson 107.
I think I would just have to go with Breece and CD, knowing like how often are you going to get the RB2 and the wide receiver 3 in your inbox, for 2 pieces. So basically what it comes down to is in a startup, you don't have a quarterback that you like on the board. Are you moving back from the 110 and your 5th round pick, which is where you would get Quentin Johnston or Jordan Addison? And are you taking the CeeDee Lamb, Breece Hall, or CeeDee Lamb and say whoever else on the board? If this was a draft pick, maybe another running back in that tier, maybe another player in that tier. If it was CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, if it was CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, or Jalen Waddle, or any of those guys, do you think you would take that or the Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison side?
I still think I would take Justin Jefferson, man. I really do, because Justin Jefferson is going – in some drafts, he goes over Joe Burrow. He goes over Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence. Like, receivers like that don't grow on trees, and as much as we love CeeDee Lamb, he does not have the ceiling that Justin Jefferson does. There's no argument for that. And Breece Hall, I like Breece Hall, but I'm not in love with Breece Hall. I'm not tied to him on any roster where I have him. Like, I'm more than willing to shop him right now, and I would still take Justin Jefferson, dude. It's Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson beat CD by about 70 points last year. Thing is, I think Breece Hall perennially could beat Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston by that many points. So I think it's a fair trade, and I think there's a reason why we spent so much time on it, and probably because I rambled on about it and I was a little bit too passionate. But I'm taking the Breece and CD side, and I'm going to run away.
Well, you know what, man, we can't agree on all of them. And like you said, it's probably a dead even trade. And if you sold Jefferson for that, you did your job. You got 2 elite assets. If you bought Jefferson for that, that was always the price you were going to have to pay, right? So nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But I'm going to move into my next guy here. And again, we don't really talk about him as much as we should, but he was technically the QB1 of the 2022 class, and it's Kenny Pickett. So, Tyler, let me ask you this. In a 1-for-1 deal, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this in Superflex leagues. In a 1-for-1 deal, would you take Kenny Pickett or Treylon Burks?
Probably Kenny Pickett. Even though I think Treylon's set up for a good year, and he's the guy we're going to talk about next. I'm actually looking at that trade right now because I was looking at the Treylon Burks trades. I'm looking at the same thing you were. Shout out Fosty and pathetic use of potential. But I think I would take Kenny Pickett just because he's a quarterback, and I don't think Treylon Burks is going to be like a crazy difference maker this year. I don't think his situation's all that much better than it was last year. I do believe in him still, and I have him on a couple of rosters, and I like having him on my team. But if I'm a quarterback needy, I would send Treylon for Kenny Pickett probably all day.
I think it's weird, right? Because I agree. I am going to take Kenny Pickett, despite thinking that Treylon could hit his ceiling, and also despite not being a big believer in Kenny Pickett. But I think it's interesting because Treylon Burks was going before Kenny Pickett in a lot of Superflex leagues last year, right?
And
like
every single one, Treylon Burks went above Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and it kind of comes to show you that it's the quarterback value, right? Like this time next year, if Bryce Young has a massive rookie year, if Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud have massive rookie years, you're probably not going to be able to trade Bijan Robinson in a 1-for-1 for whichever of those guys has the biggest year, right? Like it's kind of weird when you think about this. You'd think we'd learn year after year that by the second year, the top quarterback is probably going to have more value. Now, obviously, if you took Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave instead, then yeah, it's not really the same conversation that we're having. But fact of the matter is, these quarterbacks, they're always a safe bet because they're going to have a job for at least the first 3 years of their career, more often than not, right? So I don't know, just something that I thought was interesting and I wanted to bring up on this one. But I do have one more trade with Kenny Pickett before I pass it back to you. And this one, I kind of have a feeling we're going to be on the same side. Would you rather take Kenny Pickett and a 24 third-round pick, or Sam Howell, James Conner, and a 24 second-round pick?
Ooh. Probably. I still have to go Kenny Pickett. As much as, I mean, the James Conner in the second, I love James Conner. Sam Howell is going to give me starting production for at least a year. Probably similar production to Kenny Pickett. Maybe, I don't know. I think Pittsburgh has probably a better offense. No, I'd still have to stick with Kenny Pickett. Although it'd be a good offer, and I would consider it because it would probably give me more points this year because I think James Conner is going to score a lot, and then it would give me the extra second. That's a big upgrade from a third-round pick to a second-round pick. But I still think I'm going Kenny.
See, and I'm going Sam Howell. I mean, you know me. I believe in Sam Howell. I think he's going to do just fine. I think that him and Kenny Pickett have the same range of outcomes in 2023. The only thing that Kenny Pickett has that Sam Howell doesn't is he does have more job security being a first-round pick, Sam Howell being a fifth-round pick. If they both have a crappy year in 2023, Kenny Pickett is still going to be throwing the ball in 24 where Sam Howell will not, right? So there is that discrepancy there. But I do like upgrading from the third to the second. And I think James Conner, dude, I mean, you and I both know that James Conner is going to have a good 2023 because he has to, because Arizona is going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year without Kyler Murray. And give it 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks into the season, James Conner is going to build up his portfolio. And then, boom, you sell him maybe for even a late first, but probably an early second. Suddenly, you know, when we change James Conner to another second-round pick, right? And it's now Sam Howell and 2 seconds for Pickett and a third. That sounds a lot better, right? In my opinion. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to flip it, yeah, I mean, when you look at it in that context, definitely it's a better deal. I'd rather have the early second than James Conner on any roster that's not top 2, top 3 in the league. But yeah, it was close for me. But this one for Treylon Burks, we're going to move on to, even though we're just talking about him. I think I know where I would go on this one. And I think it's kind of by a lot when I really calculate it out. It's Treylon Burks and Deontay or Ramondre in a second.
I'm going to take that's pretty close. That's pretty damn close. I think Deontay is going to come back this year, be a top 24 wide receiver. I think Treylon Burks is going to have himself a nice little breakout year. I don't think he's going to be like a world-breaking wide receiver or anything like that, but he is going to offer, you know, wide receiver 2 upside, probably going to be in every week, wide receiver 3. You have Ramondre in a second?
Yeah, it was Ramondre in a second.
I have to take that side. I have to. I mean, Ramondre is probably a top 10 dynasty running back at this moment in time. New England does not have a real RB2 on their roster, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring in Leonard Fournette or Zeke Elliott, you know, Kareem Hunt, whatever. But I'm fine with living on the edge with those consequences if they do bring one of those guys in. I don't think they're even in contention for Dalvin Cook. I think they don't need to spend that kind of money. But I also don't think like Zeke or Leonard Fournette would really put a big damper on Ramondre finishing as a top 10 guy in PPR this year. And that's just more valuable to me than getting a wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 3. And I know Treylon Burks is athletic as all hell. There's a lot of upside there. But I mean, realistically, when you look at 2023, it's going to be kind of the shell of Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis or Will Levis. And I'm not really going to put a lot of trust in any of those 3 quarterbacks to give Treylon Burks, you know, this groundbreaking season. So I will take Ramondre and the second in probably just about every scenario in this one.
So here's how I broke it down in my head, right? Is that I view both Ramondre and Deontay as about having like 2 to 3 year windows, probably at max. I think they're probably going to score a similar amount of fantasy points. Like I'm pretty high on Deontay bouncing back. I think Ramondre could take a bit of a step back if they do sign one of those running backs, or even, if they sign D-Hop, it could change that offense around or anything like that. So I think that Deontay and Ramondre, although in terms of like dynasty value, they're not being drafted anywhere around each other. I really think that the production is going to be similar enough in a long-term outlook that I could look at Treylon Burks for a second and really want that Treylon and Deontay side. I think that's the way I'm going to lean on it, and I'm glad that we've been disagreeing in this one.
No, I like the way that you look at that because, to your point, I've said it a million times. I do think that Deontay is due for more touchdowns this year. He has to be. He had 0 last year. And if he finds the end zone even just 5 times this year, he doesn't have the amount of points that Ramondre did last year, but Ramondre also had a pretty damn good year. If you take his pretty damn good year last year and you take Deontay's pretty damn good year in 2021, you do have, similar point outputs. So I do like that you point that out. I still do lean Ramondre just because I'm higher on running backs than a lot of people are in the offseason. I don't know why, but it is what it is. But I'm going to move on to my last one here. Jameson Williams, right? So I talked about James Cook, kind of boring. I talk about Kenny Pickett, kind of boring. But we need input on guys like that because there's not enough input on guys like that. I don't think people want to have those gross conversations, right? But let's talk about Jameson Williams. Arguably an equally gross conversation because Jameson Williams was injured all year in 2022 and he's suspended for the first, 6 games of 2023. So would you rather have Jameson Williams and Jerry Jeudy or Mark Andrews?
Mark Andrews. Like there's a world where like Jerry Jeudy does not build off of the end of the year that he had last year, and that Denver offense does not like continue and pick up where they left off. And there's a world where Jameson Williams is just like insignificant and doesn't put up numbers like he did at the end of last year. I understand he was hurt. I understand all of those things. I understand he's going to be suspended for the first 6 weeks this year. So there's no real reason to want to like go out there and die to go get him when or be in a rush to go get him. So for those reasons, give me Mark Andrews. Give me the guaranteed stud. Like there's too much risk in that JMO and Jerry Jeudy side to give up Mark Andrews.
Yep, I completely agree. And it all comes down to what you just said. Mark Andrews is a surefire stud. Jerry Jeudy, he's a risk. Jameson Williams, he's a big risk, right? Jameson Williams could pay off. I love Jameson Williams. He was my wide receiver 1 of the 2022 class. I wasn't drafting him as such because, there was a lot of talent and also just the injury concerns. But Jameson Williams was like my raw score wide receiver 1 of that class. And I do think he could be a very good NFL wide receiver and an excellent addition to any fantasy team. But with what's going on over the first year and a half of his career, like you can't trade away Mark Andrews to acquire a guy like that. I'm sorry. That's just, you're giving up a bona fide stud for just far too much risk. So I'm not comfortable with that trade. I'll take Mark Andrews 10 out of 10 times. But I got one more Jameson Williams trade before I pass it back to you. And it is going to be the last trade that I'm going to highlight on this video today. So would you rather have Jameson Williams, Michael Mayer, and a 24 third? Or are you taking T. Higgins and a 24 second?
Higgins, easy. Not even
I think
close.
so too. I think so too. So let me ask you this. I think this would be more fair trade if we remove that second from the equation. So Jameson Williams, Mike Mayer, and a future third, or T. Higgins.
Still T. Higgins, dude. That second round pick didn't make the difference. I would never in a million years sell a guy like T. Higgins for what could be. Like I'm sending a hope and prayer that Jameson Williams comes anywhere close to T. Higgins and can finish in the top 24. And then Trey McBride, who probably is not going to.
That's not Trey McBride.
Michael Mayer, who is in a Las Vegas offense, who is probably not going to be great. It's led by Jimmy Garoppolo, who has led on tight ends in the past. He's played with, Gronk and George Kittle for his career. So he has leaned on his tight ends, but I don't think that Michael Mayer is going to be the difference maker right now. Just screw all that. Give me T. Higgins.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you because I just wasn't sure if it was my own T. Higgins bias thinking that this wasn't close. I mean, I was like, well, if somebody made this trade, someone has to believe in it, right? But I agree. Michael Mayer is a rookie, unproven. Tight ends take 2, maybe 3 years to break out. Jameson Williams is on the trajectory of a tight end, right? We're not going to see a breakout until 2, maybe 3 years, if one even happens. So again, not trading a stud like T. Higgins for, too high risk assets, right? So I'll take T. Higgins there, but buddy, I will pass it back to you. I know we got 2 more trades to cover today. So who's that last person we're looking into?
So the last one is going to be Kenny Walker, and I'm just gonna kind of cut the BS out of this one because there's a lot of BS in it. All right, so Kenny Walker wow, I'm surprised this one happened, and it just happened on May 30th. Kenny Walker or Jordan Addison, Michael Gallup in a second.
Walker or Addison Gallup in a second? I would take Addison in a second pretty easily over Kenny Walker, I think, because I'm pretty high on Jordan Addison. I think Gallup is just free money at that point. Now, I can see the appeal with the Kenny Walker side because he wasn't, dude, like when he played last year, he was top 5, but there's just far too many question marks right now. I'm going to take, the additional pick and the wide receiver that I think is the biggest stud of the rookie class.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you're saying that you think Jordan Addison is your wide receiver one of this rookie class, but I don't think you're. I don't know. I don't think I've heard you say that before. But there's a lot of people who would not trade Jordan Addison for Kenny Walker straight up. So the fact that you're getting a package there, you're giving up a package, or you're giving up a package here at Kenny Walker. I think that's pretty crazy. I would go with the Addison side there.
So I guess I have to go on the record now. Earlier today, I decided that Addison is my wide receiver 1. He was my wide receiver 1 ahead of JSN before the draft process. I went back to the JSN train, kind of just jumped on the Hive mindset for the last few weeks before the draft, even stayed there for the following weeks after. But yeah, I mean, dude, they were separated by 2 draft picks in real life. And I love Jordan Addison. So I'm not drafting him before JSN, but I will 100% be willing to listen to offers to trade back from 106 to 107, if that makes sense. I'm not shooting myself in the foot with the value.
I mean, yeah, no, and that's the thing is you have to understand the difference between your opinions and what's actually going to happen in the league. Just like you said last year, you said JMO was your wide receiver 1, and even though I think you were god wrong, and I think you would say you're god wrong right now, you didn't draft him at the 102 behind Breece Hall or whatever. You would have drafted him at the 106 or wherever he had fallen to, because you know the league. So then this one is actually quite interesting, and I think I would have a tough time if this ended up in my inbox. Actually mentions Chris Olave as well. But we're going to go, it's either Zach Charbonnet, Kenny Walker, and Quentin Johnston, or Chris Olave.
Charbonnet and Kenny Walker. And who was that last one?
Quentin Johnston.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty big trade. You're guaranteeing yourself whoever the lead back is in Seattle and QJ, who is arguably the biggest boom bust potential of the 2023 rookie class. Could boom, could bust. No one would be surprised either way. Shoot, man. I think you're going to disagree with me, but I'm going to take the running backs and QJ over Chris Olave. It's a close one for me. I would struggle if this hit my inbox as well. If I'm the Chris Olave side, I don't know if I am pulling the trigger on it, if that makes sense. Like in a 1-for-1, not knowing any context, I'll take the 2 running backs and QJ, but I would still have a hard time accepting it. You know what I mean? So I'm only choosing a side because you're making me. But I do love – I mean, we know that Seattle's running game is going to produce an RB1, whether it's going to be Kenny Walker or Zach Charbonnet. It's probably going to be Walker, right? But if one of them goes down with injury, the other one is immediately a top 12, top 15 guy, and they're both going to have standalone value anyway. I'll take the additional scratch off of QJ hitting his ceiling. So, yeah, I'll take that side.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, like Zach Charbonnet technically is probably worth the 111, 112. Kenny Walker is probably also worth mid to late first round pick, probably a late first round pick. And then Quentin Johnston is obviously worth a first round pick. So you could say this is like almost 3 first round picks worth of value for Chris Olave. And it was also in a 12 team start 12. So a deep starting lineup there. I would probably go with the package too, because I believe in the upside of Quentin Johnston. And like you said, I think Seattle's going to produce an RB1. So if I'm getting a guaranteed RB1 plus whatever Quentin Johnston turns out to be, and he could be very, very good, I think I'm going to go with that package, because I think there's a lot of worlds where I look back and feel stupid for holding on to Chris Olave here, and there's not many worlds where I feel stupid taking the package and taking those 3 separate bets on those guys.
Yeah, it's a good one though. I like that you bring that one up. It was hard for me to say, but as soon as you point out, like, that's 3 first rounds of value. As good as Chris Olave is, nobody's sending you 3 first round picks for Chris Olave right now. So that's a hell of a trade. Kudos to both of those guys, because that's a big trade.
Yeah, so that was our last one of the night. I'm definitely not going to do the sign off, but thanks, Mikey, for making this video flow a lot better than I did, and always being such a good speaker. It was good hanging out with you.
Well, you know what, man? I have plenty of trip ups. The only difference is, when I do it, I point it out immediately, and I tell you that, oh, don't worry, man, I'll edit this out. So don't worry, buddy. I'll edit some of yours out. But thanks for tuning in on our trade video here. We highlighted those second-year players, and we didn't get to all of them, obviously. So let us know if there's anyone that we missed that you've seen trades go down for in your own leagues, and let us know what those trades are. We are always interested to hear what you guys are seeing in your leagues, because obviously there's a consensus and a lot of people look for similar value. But I mean, my league is different than your league, and Tyler's league is different than that guy's league, and everybody values players different. So I'm very intrigued to see who we're buying, who we're selling, all that good stuff. But for myself, for Tyler, for Goal Line Dynasty, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next time.